Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. A month ago we spoke about Log4j and how we can actually hack some web application with that, but what if I tell you that we can actually also touch cars and charging stations using the Log4j vulnerability? So to do that, I will show you how we can actually hack cars, but especially charging stations using this kind of hardware and some tools that I have made for that. For the record, I've also made a blog post about it on the TriMicro blog, and in here you can see exactly what I wanted also to talk to you about is just how we can actually attack the V2G unit, which is the charging station, and connect it to the car, which will actually be plugged onto the car charging station in order to charge the car, right? And all that is actually connected to a grid. And so there's an operator just beyond the V2G unit. So actually, if you hack a V2G unit, you can also pivot into an operator. So this is also something that could be like very dangerous. So if you get into a V2G unit, a car charging station, you can at some point also reach the operator network. So what I will show you exactly in this video is, in practice, how we can actually hack the car charging stations using the stamps in here, and also that is in here. So let's also see that in here. There's a tool that I've made which is called V2G injector, and so this V2G injector was the first tool that I've made against the V2G protocol, which was the communication between the car charging station and the car. And if you want also to learn more about the vulnerability, the vulnerability that I found also in 2019, you can also find the research paper that I've made in here, explaining also what is it, some details about the V2G, also how it works, and and also the details on how we can actually challenge the security of this technology. And as it is using the unplugged green fee, which is kind of related of something that I've also worked on. For example, if you remember my research on unplug AV, you can probably also see that, for example, in this particular context with the unplug green fee, we can also find some nice vulnerability, exactly as the unplug AV may be also more interesting than that. So yeah. And because in here, this space is a little bit too small to actually bring a car and also a charging station, I just made a little environment in here that will also demo the attack. So in here, you can see one CPL, which will act as a PAV, which will be acting as a vehicle. The other one as EVAC, which is the charging station. And the other one will actually be the interceptor CPL, PLC. But at some point, we need also to integrate the logical network that is created by the car charging station. So to do that, let's do a little attack plan. So to begin, we have to just understand that in here you can see a column header where there is like two chargers, and the two chargers are connected to one car. So actually, physically, each charger is connected to one car. But the thing is that using the unplug green fee make it much more complicated, because it uses the PLC, the electrical line, in order to communicate. So at some point also, as this car is communicating with this charging station, doesn't mean that it is also isolated from the other car charging station, because as we saw previously with the unplug AV, there's a way to also listen at what is going on sometimes between two charging stations, but also a car that is connected to one charging station to another car. So actually, as the communication spreads in the power line, that means that the communication is also broadcasted. It is exactly like wireless networks. And yeah, also in the attack plan, I can show you that, for example, as an attacker, in here, if you are connected with a wall plug, and this wall plug is connected to a house, for example, or any residency, and this residency is also connected to the same column header as the charging station, you have a very huge chance to also be able to communicate with those charging stations. So to do that, we will actually use the physical MITM, which is actually the plug which is connected in the same CP lines as the charger and the cars. And like that, we'll be able to inject our traffic. But also, if we want to just attack the car charger, we can also impersonate a PEV, because actually just simulating a PEV will also allow us to actually talk to the charging station. But if you want a better control, I'm suggesting you to use actually two plugs. So like that, you will be able to control all the communication, like the unplug green fee, but also the V2G totally, and you will be able to craft everything you want without having, for example, to raise any messages. So let's maybe show you that in here. So you can, for example, use, for example, the two plugs in here. So let's call it like plug 1, plug 2, and so plug 1 and plug 2 will be connected together, so like that. And so they will use actually the Ethernet interface. So Ethernet interface in here. And then we will actually just connect the CP line with the power line, the plug 2 on the charging station, and P1 will be connected directly to the car. So like that, we hook totally the communication between the car and the charging station. And so particularly like in here, we have the total control of what we are doing. So for example, if we don't want to forward a special message, we don't do it. If we want also to craft, for example, to modify a message, we can modify it, like that, over the fly. So it's, for me, like one of the interception that I wasn't mentioning on the papers, but is like something that some people I know are using actually to attack this kind of communications without having to be worried about the SECC discovery and some other stuff. And also, for example, having a better control on the Qualcomm interface that is exposed normally on the MCU side of the kit, or the dev kit that I'm using in here. So yeah, here's another technique in here. To illustrate that, we can actually use the V2G injector like that. So we can download it. Once it's installed, you can run with sudo pito a V2G injector. And then first, also, maybe we will have to plug it. So let's do that. So now let's start attacking this network. To do that, we will first plug the kit like that, so make sure that it is running. Then we'll use V2G injector. So we run our V2G injector like that. All right, we also set up the network sniffer like that, so sniff, and then you precise the eFace, the interface. So I would just retrieve it like that in another console, like that. Perfect. Like that. Perfect. And then I will also now run the different piece in here. So I will run that and that. All right, let's go back and also wait until we see something. That will take just a minute. All right, so we have been able to sniff actually that. So we have been able to sniff the HPGP, some HPGP transaction, especially from the AVEC. And so we have the NM key and also the net ID on which we can, that we can actually use to intrude the network. So then when we set up the NM key and the net ID, we are able to integrate the network. Once you're connected in the same AVLN, you're able to spot some packets that will come. So for example, once the client will connect to the V2G network, you will actually see some packets. So wait for that. I will also just force them to happen like that. So you will see the first request, which will be like, for example, if we just try to decode it, it will be decoded as follows. Then you will see another, which is the response. So let's maybe just decode it, because this one is not decoded yet. So we will use PKT like that, and Xlify like that. Sorry, fat fingers. Not that. That, perfect. So then we can use the Ethernet layer like that, PKT, and see the response. So we see the target address is this one. So this one will be the address, IPv6 address of the charging station, and the target port, which will be this one. So now there's an interesting thing to do is that with this port, we will inject some V2G payload that will actually attack this implementation. And why? And right now you're probably asking why I was talking about Log4j. So this is the right moment. So now we have the foot in the network. We are able also to know exactly on which the V2G server will be listening to. And so then we can inject some bad data. And why? Because the implementation that I'm using is in Java. So and indeed, for example, if you look at the RISE V2G implementation that I'm using right now to simulate, for example, the V2G communication, you can see that, for example, this one was actually vulnerable to the Log4j vulnerability. And this is something that I also reported at the time, but it was now fixed. But, you know, a month ago, you could actually exploit all the systems that were using this actual implementation. And this actual implementation also is interesting because it's not just like a proof of concept implementation. If you look at the Joseph webpage, you can probably guess that RISE V2G should be maybe a nice target to play with. And if you look at the blog post in the Trend Micro blog, you will see that I will actually attack the very first step, which is the support app protocol rec, which is made by the AVCC, which is the PEV, so the car. To trigger the Log4j vulnerability, I will use Canary token, which is a convenient way also to get a notification by email. So yeah, I mean, just the lazy way to spot this Log4shell vulnerability. So I will take Log4shell, and then I will provide a mail address. So this mail address will be like a test log4j penterts.com, and so I will use that as a log4j test like that. I create my token and I copy it. Once it's copied, you can actually also push it on the protocol namespace, which is a field that I will exploit to trigger the vulnerability. So yeah, you can also, if it doesn't work with this field, it can work also with other fields. Every detail is also explained on the blog post, right? I will just make the demo working. So then we just put the XML as a variable in here, and we will make use of something that is very interesting. But first, let's maybe encode also our payload. So we will use, for example, the exe encoder. So let's encode exe this XML like that. So we should have something that is as follows. All right. And then we will make use of another helper, which is called V2G send exe. So like that, we use the exit like that. And we'll also make sure that our target address is in here. Don't forget also to use the interface on which you will send the packet, because yeah, of course, it is IPv6. So now let's just put that, and then we should wait, normally not very long. And in very few seconds, you can see that we got our canary triggered. And so you can actually see that, for example, the canary token, that is our token, was triggered. So the field was vulnerable to the Log4shell vulnerability. And so we can go further by exploiting the vulnerability to, for example, get a remote shell and so on. So yeah, now you see how you can actually use V2G injector in order to exploit also the Log4j vulnerability. And that's it for this video. I hope you like it, and now you know how to actually attack the charging station using this kind of device by plugging on the CP line. And to support this channel, just subscribe to it and bump the like button. Thank you very much, and see you later.